So I'm going to turn and talk about the State of the Union again, and really probably the whole show is more or less about the State of the Union. But I'm going to start with, I mentioned the suffragettes, you know, the women who were dressed in white, and there were a whole slew of them, and members of the House and Senate sat together, and they honestly, every time the camera panned to them, they looked just miserable. And I really want you to think, if you're a woman voter, and conceding, abortion is an issue where there's clear, undeniable difference between what the Republicans and the Democrats think and the policies they pursue, for sure. But beyond that, what is it that President Trump has accomplished that is so upsetting and disgusting or deserving of disdain from the viewpoint of the Democrats in Washington? What is it they really hate about his accomplishments? But I want to turn and talk about Nancy Pelosi. First, I want to plant this really unpleasant seed in your thought. You do realize, of course, that according to our Constitution, Nancy Pelosi, as Speaker of the House, is the third person in line of succession to serve as the president of this country. Meaning, if something, and I never want anything bad to happen to anyone, but I mean, if President Trump were gone, if Vice President Pence were gone, the next person who would then automatically, under our Constitution, become president is the Speaker of the House, Nancy Pelosi. Turning to her, I have a bunch of clips I want to play for you just to talk about who she is and what she's all about. So, beginning of the evening, State of the Union, President Trump comes in, and the very first thing that people were noticing, and I'm going to play the clip for have Matt, the wonderful producer, and he really is a wonderful producer, Matt the wonderful, play this first clip, just clip one. This is Nancy Pelosi at the podium, and President Trump has arrived. He's about to give the State of the Union, and he's turning around to hand the script of his State of the Union to Vice President Pence and to Speaker Pelosi. Here she is.
Not a lot of exchange there.
Okay, I want to point out, you say very short clip, 7 seconds. First thing is, when President Trump handed the text of his speech to Vice President Pence, there was no handshake. So I don't even know if the handshake at that moment is traditional. Then he hands it to Speaker Pelosi, and she put her hand out. President Trump turned around and turned back to the podium, did not shake Speaker Pelosi's hand. Number one, I don't even know if it's customary. Vice President Pence didn't do it. So, maybe it's not customary. Maybe it was something Nancy Pelosi did out of nervousness or whatever reason, trying to show some semblance of decorum or something. Tried to shake his hand. President Trump did not shake her hand, turned around. The other point I make about it is, I don't even know, I don't know if it's customary. I don't even know if he saw her. It's a very quick, the whole clip is 7 seconds. He picks it up, he turns around, hands to Pence, hands to Pelosi, turns around. He may not have even seen her. But third, even if he did, as some of the people are pointing out who are defenders of Pelosi, President Trump was so rude, he didn't shake her hand. This is the woman, to be clear, who authorized the entire sham, hoax, impeachment process to begin. If Nancy Pelosi had not signed off on it, it wouldn't have happened. This is a woman trying to drive President Trump out of his job, even though duly elected. And we're still the day before, when the speech was given last night, the day before the Senate, the final vote will be on, and they won't get a vote to remove him. So therefore it becomes a vote to acquit, wherever the numbers are. This is a woman who's lied about him, put forth an entire impeachment sham for the whole country to watch for weeks on end. And then, I could see President Trump thinking, you're trying to drive me out of my office. You're lying about me. I don't think I'm going to shake your hand. But that was a small thing. Next clip I want to play. So so they kicked off the evening. Nancy Pelosi's conduct was just simply, if my sixth grade child had behaved this way, we would have talked about it afterwards. Sixth graders should know how to act better than she did. This is a tiny little clip. Clip 2. This is how Nancy Pelosi looked sitting behind President Trump during the entire speech, this entire State of the Union. To summarize before I play it, she was muttering to herself, gesturing to someone off screen. She knows she's in the camera. She knows the president's there. She's the Speaker of the House, VP Pence. The whole camera's on them. And the whole time she's muttering under her breath, licking her lips, screwing up her face, talking to someone off camera, like talking across Vice President Pence to some unknown person, or maybe to herself, we'll never know, making faces, lifting up her papers. The whole time he's trying to talk, this is, the once a year State of the Union, staring at pages, turning pages, lifting pages like this, only covering her face like this. This is what she's doing during the impeachment, during the State of the Union. Nancy Pelosi behaving like a second grader. But go ahead, let's play this clip too.
Socialism destroys nations, but always remember freedom unifies the soul. To safeguard American liberty, we have invested a record-breaking $2.2 trillion in the United States military.
That wasn't the most ideal clip, but there were many of them. But, she repeated a line that President Trump had just said in the State of the Union. She repeated, and freedom, I can't remember what the line was, freedom does something good for the soul. But her point is, you see her mouthing the words, looking around. Most of the time that the president was delivering the State of the Union, she's staring at papers, fussing with them. Just acting like, signaling, I'm not listening to a word you're saying. You deserve no respect. I will not listen to you. Afterwards, by the way, one of her, I think it was her chief of staff, but somebody on her behalf was answering questions from the media, and the media guy was saying, don't you think that was a little over the top? I mean, how she behaved and was recounting all this stuff. Her staff said, hey, we think given, all that President Trump has done, she behaved in a very classy manner. I mean, there's not even a hint of an apology coming from her for behaving the way she did during the State of the Union. The next thing I want to hit, I want to not, let's see, let me see which one I want to get here. Oh yeah, I'm gonna run to the end of this. Yeah, this is clip 3, end of the clips from the State of the Union. This is clip 3, and this is of Nancy Pelosi, what she did at the end of the State of the Union, which is it's clip 3, what she did at the very end of the State of the Union. Here she is, how she conducted herself. You gotta watch what she's doing. She tore up. The Speaker of the House on national television, very prominently, intentionally standing up, tore up the State of the Union speech. And I got to tell you, folks, that State of the Union speech, back to my first 5, this was a president resonating with the American people, resonating with what he had to say, resonating with the people who are grateful to have jobs, and the stories he had. I mean, the greatest thing in the State of the Union, it seems in recent years, are the individual people's stories that are brought to light on national television during the State of the Union. So, the young man who wants to become a pilot, and his grandfather or great-grandfather, I think it was, had just turned 100, was a Tuskegee Airman. I mean, announcing them, awarding them. They had the little girl who is in 4th grade, whose single mom wants to be able to control her daughter's education, wants to provide her a better public school than the one commanded by the zip code form of assigning public schools, and not having access to a very limited number of scholarships, where this young girl who's black, she and her mom are black, that little family found out on national television during the State of the Union that President Trump had arranged for this young girl, 4th grader, to get an opportunity scholarship, which means the idea that the mom, the parent, can choose their child's education rather than the teacher union zip code dictated public school system, where this mom was very disappointed, upset, could not get her daughter into a better school. So you had the little girl awarded, you had the Tuskegee Airmen, you had the family where they brought the dad in and surprised the family. The mom had brought her 2 young children. They surprised her with the dad who's come home from military service abroad. I mean, story after story. And one of the most touching stories they had was a man in the audience who had served a fair amount of time in prison. A black man, an older man, had served time in prison, become addicted to some sort of drug, had a drug problem, became addicted. And the reason he was at the State of the Union and singled out by President Trump was because this was a man who had benefited from the criminal justice reform bill that President Trump signed and that he spearheaded getting it through Congress. So this man got a second chance. Get out of prison, is freed of his drug addiction, and is working. The dream of working for yourself and where you want and earning your own way in life. So that man, I mean, honestly, I saw men putting different notices on social media saying, I cried during the State of the Union. These were heartfelt American stories that President Trump brought to America, brought to light in America. So it was just a fabulous State of the Union. I think that Nancy Pelosi, her conduct was just beneath despicable, just childish, and honestly, not just childish, like you shouldn't act that way when you're a grown-up, but in no sense, in no way, grateful for all the good that has come to America through President Trump's policies. Not at all. Not grateful. Not. I mean, I guess she did clap. She clapped at a few things, very, very few things. For most of the different stories, these amazing life stories, most of them she sat there stoic, as did the women in white, the Suffragette brigade, which, by the way, does not represent women. It represents left-wing views. Those people, women dressed in white, sitting there listening to the State of the Union, they do not speak for women. They do not represent women. They speak and stand for radical leftism. They could not cheer on all the good in America. It should make you wonder, make you ask yourself, what is it? What is the America they would want? What would they want that's not happening right now? I'd say, leaving abortion aside, because that's another issue we just aren't going to agree in the discussion today about the State of the Union.